My second one is in this realm, very Republican based. I'm going to go on record and I'm going to say that I think in the calendar year of 2023, Trump is indicted. Now, where that comes from, not sure, because I think the first one's going to come from Jack Smith, if that's his name, or the special prosecutor. I think that's where the first one's going to come from. But we have Georgia that's right on the goal line as well. I also want to make it clear, like, there's going to be years in between indictment and conviction if it's ultimately going to be conviction. So I just think for this year, and I think probably I don't want to put a timetable on it, but probably in the first half of the year, I think that Trump is indicted, whether it's Georgia or the federal case with Garland and Jack Smith. I think that's what I'm going with. We're number two.
Well, I'm gonna have to get a new number one because that was my number one. Now, um, what's funny because when we did our rankings, we just said 1 through 5. I don't think we talked about significance. So I agree. I do think. Um, I think that he'll have a mixture. I do think there'll be one federal. I do. Here's the thing: a lot of people, a lot of pundits you see talk about how they believe that Mar-a-Lago is going to be an easier thing on the federal level than January 6th. But even if he doesn't go down for January 6th, I see some of his close allies and others going down, even maybe even members of Congress. So it's is I think he gets both a state and a federal. I think he gets two state. I think New York will come and get him again. And now that they've reconstituted it at the Manhattan District Attorney's level, and then on top of it, I think Georgia gets him. Now the thing is, Georgia has a Republican governor, Brian Kemp. I don't know if Kemp would intervene at some point in time and issue a pardon or what have you. Kemp is no Trumpster, and Kemp's brand, if Kemp's going to have any kind of uh, growth, or if he wants to go beyond being the governor of Georgia, I think it's in his best interest to be the anti-Trump. To be, he's not a never Trumper. He's, they'll probably have to come up with a new phrase that the former Trumpsters. But I think Trump gets two federal. I think he gets two state charges and at least one federal. I don't know. I mean, I just really think that even if there's not a legal argument for January 6th, and it may only come down to Mar-a-Lago, but if there's not a legal argument, I just still feel people will feel disappointed if because of what's coming out January 6th. But as I said, I do think some of his allies, some of his confidants are going to go down on January 6th.
Yeah, you said a lot of interesting things, especially about Georgia, because I actually heard this conversation the other way. I thought there was a conversation to be had that if Jack Smith or he has federal charges indicted against him, that if a Republican wins the White House in 2024, that the Republican president could pardon him very easily. And I think he probably faces less damage than a governor would. And I think it's less likely that a governor like Kemp would do it because, one, it doesn't help Kemp politically because Kemp could win in Georgia without Trump, right? He doesn't need Trump. He famously didn't need Trump for this last election against Abrams. So I just think it helps him probably less, and it probably hurts him more than it helps him, I think, locally. So I think it's more likely that Trump gets pardoned on a federal level, especially if the White House is red in 2024, which we hope not, right? So I just think it's interesting. I also think it's going to be years, right? It's going to be quite little. I'm not talking about exaggeration here. It's going to be 3, 4, 5 years before we even see any sort of conviction or verdict in any of these cases because he's dragged on civil cases for 10, 12 years. I can't imagine something that's going to end his freedom as a citizen, right? So I do agree, though. I think those are all coming. I think Georgia probably has him dead to rights. I think Jack Smith probably has him dead to rights. John, we talked about this back in September, October, that they didn't want to meddle before the election. And then now it's the holidays. And I just think you probably know this better timetable wise than me. It just seems like this February, March, April kind of lull of political season that will be the time. Not that the DOJ is playing politics, but I just think they waited till after the election. They probably didn't want to do it around the holidays. not to be like sympathetic or anything. They just wouldn't have the resources. People take vacation and stuff like that, and it kind of seems like right after this new year, things would get circling more. What do you think as far as timetable wise, as far as like what the DOJ is thinking?